If I could describe last night's game in one word, I think it would be synergy. Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and tonight I'm recording this next campaign diary in my movie room. This is going to be my set, if you will, for a little ways, or for a little while longer. I'm actually in the process of moving, and I haven't done that in 15 years, and I've forgotten, frankly, what a pain in the ass it is. I mean, it really is. But right now, the movie room is the only place that hasn't been destroyed, and kind of rebuilt for staging and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually in pretty good shape. I don't have to worry about doing anything in here. I have to tear down my D&D tables every Friday night when we're done playing, when we want to show the house. But beyond that, this room has done really well. So I'll probably be doing my next few here, and then suddenly one day it'll be a whole new room because I will have finally moved. But anyway, this is campaign diary number 7, I believe. I think I got the number right. And we are in chapter 3. We kind of officially segued deeper into chapter 3 just last night when we played. And to be honest with you, this happens. I think it happens in everybody's campaign. Obviously, it must happen in everybody's campaign. Well, maybe sometimes it doesn't. I think sometimes that's it can be a problem. But last night, I'm going to go through some of the things here, not all the things. I'm trying to cap these in maybe 20 minutes or so. But last night, something happened that happens, I think, in most people's campaigns eventually, and that is synergy. When your characters and your players really, and your characters, I guess both ends of that, really begin to work together. And, working together as far as teamwork, as far as ideas and combat and role-playing, suggestions, all this kind of stuff, right? Last night, after, I think, 8 sessions, 7, 8 sessions, it clicked. Now, I think it was slowly clicking as, the more you play, but I think last night, everybody was kind of on their A game again, and just everything, the combat and role-playing and ideas shooting back and forth were just synergized. People were really, really working together. Not that they weren't before, but I think people are getting more comfortable. People are getting used to each other and their characters and how they play, what to expect. And last night really was that moment. And it's awesome when it happens. And really, I think from this point on, I think that synergy is going to stay. And now it's my turn to see how I can best them, with my enemies and NPCs and different things like that, because now they're working as a unit. Now it really is me versus 5 people, even though it's kind of been that way at the beginning, but they were kind of more a little unbalanced, if you will. But now it's like I really got to bring my game, I think, as a dungeon master, to the enemies and what they've got going on. So last night was really, really cool. And you know what made it cool too? It was not just the synergy that was happening. The players made it entertaining. I've been moving for the past 2 weeks, so my mind has only been on Dungeons & Dragons like 10% of the time. Every day, it kind of came up like, oh gosh, I gotta role play. I got a dungeon master here in like next Friday, And so every day I would spend a little bit of time on it, but nowhere near the amount of time that I usually do. So I was prepped and ready, but, just not as ready as I would have liked to have been. But you know what? I had the outlines down, minimal prep, kind of thing. And it was really the players that made it very, very entertaining. They went and did anything they could within reason, just anything they could. So it was just a magical moment. I think last night, I'm not trying to make it sound like all my sessions are wonderful and beautiful and everything is roses. No, you watch the other campaign diaries, there's been plenty of clunky things happening. What's that word I'm looking for? Not party of fools. And it'll come to me later. I don't think I got time for this. Anyway, so we're in chapter 3. Last night we did start off the session with going to Erebor. It's something they wanted to do in the last session. They wanted to get some better armor because I had taken much of everything they had when they went to the camp and got captured. So they wanted to go to Erebor and really quickly, actually, and try to get some better equipment because Greenest had been sacked, right? There's not much there. So they went to Erebor and they stayed there for about like 45 minutes. They did not stay long at all. And we did a little bit of role playing there. We actually had a pretty good time there. I mean, we only spent maybe really 30 minutes of actual real-time gameplay in Erebor, but it was actually pretty entertaining, and it was all off the cuff. I had no clue what to do with Erebor. I didn't know much about it. I looked at the Forgotten Realms wiki. There wasn't much there. It was just a few paragraphs, if that. There was a small little map, and that was about it. So there wasn't a lot that I knew about the particular city. But they did really well. They took a lot of the stuff from the keep. And went out to some of the jewelers and thieves guild. Our thief, Thimbraeus, I'll put his image up here. He convinced the party to give him all the jewels, which I was curious how that was going to play out. But he wanted to see if he could bargain for the jewels and get a higher price for them, because we had the value, right? We knew what each gem was worth, but he wanted to see if he can get a little bit more with it. So he went to the local thieves guild, and we kind of role played that out. And his persuasion skills outmatched my own, so he actually got a little bit more money for the team, which I thought was really, really cool. Probably additional 150 or so. And in my campaign right now, that's a lot of money because I've devalued gold. So for them, that's a lot. That's a lot to work with. So he did that. I thought, it started out the night as a great idea. Like it was the beginning of great ideas, I should say, because there was just so much stuff that happened. But anyway, so he haggled with the guys at the Thieves Guild, got a great payoff for that, brought it back, and he actually met one of my characters from the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm so blank. My mind is so much on moving. The prologue adventure in Kingston, there was a character. I don't really have a picture of him. I should find something. But he is a thief, and he is a living skeleton, and he wears a kind of a black cloak. And his name, and he's known as Old Roger. And he's a cursed thief, really. He's got a whole backstory, but he's a cursed thief. But he's very eccentric, and he was seen at the prologue adventure, and him and Thimbraeus were kind of gambling with one another. And they kind of walked away from the table pretty much in a tie. They each kind of won a couple rounds, and they just each owed each other money. It was kind of funny. But he ran into Old Roger in one of the taverns there in Erebor. I'm probably saying the town wrong, so just don't worry about that. I'm saying all the names wrong, okay? But he met with him, and they actually had another gambling game, and ended up, Thimbraeus wiped the floor with him that time. So, it was a fun little interlude, and everybody kind of restocked, and from there, they immediately, without hesitation, got back on their horses, which they borrowed from the Greenest, and went to the camp. And, of course, the camp's abandoned. Right, the camp is completely abandoned. If you read the book, it goes into chapter 3. Everybody's kind of cleared out, very hastily, by the way. And as they were going towards the camp, this was actually, they left, it took them to about nightfall to get to the camp. And they could see the rangers out there, the hunters, basically, who were still around the camp. They're not really affiliated with the cult, but they're out there. They're getting game and whatnot for anybody, the people who are left there. And our ranger had a good idea. I think it was my ranger, because everybody at the table right now was just firing off ideas left and right. It was so great. But I think it was my ranger who came up with the idea of, hey, why don't I go there? I'm a ranger. Maybe I can talk to them and I can get some information from them. And I think that plan went around the table for about 3 or 5 minutes, and they all kind of ducked down in the grass because it's still the grasslands. They ducked in the grass, and the ranger kind of went out and talked to these hunters, and he got along pretty well with them, and he kind of acted out a ruse of, hey, I'm just one of you guys. I've been out there doing my thing. Haven't really caught anything. Don't want to go back to the camp empty-handed. Could you guys kind of spare me some meat and whatnot? Because they had a big deer with them at the time. And so they gave him a little bit of meat so he could take back and not be embarrassed. But yeah, he got some information out of them. And it was just like this little tiny moment, but it was actually pretty cool. It was just something I would not have anticipated. So he got some information about the camp and what was going on. The hunters kind of said, yeah, these guys have moved out. A lot of people have left the campsites. They're not sure where they're going, but they're gone, and they're kind of supplying food for those who have remained behind. Well, he went back, relayed that to the group, and what they decided to do, I'll put a map up. They did not go directly into the camp. They skirted to the right and slowly went up that slope that kind of encircles the camp. And so by that time, too, it was also nightfall. There's no kobolds. There's nothing like really anything in there with night vision left to kind of keep an eye on things. The guard towers had been abandoned. So they were kind of skirting the plateau. And they had the thief, again, use his sneak skills and go kind of creep his way to the edge. and just take stock of what was there, like look around, see what was left. And of course, there's nothing left. I told them about the abandoned tents, a lot of garbage, different things left behind. A lot of tents were left in haste. Many tents are missing, especially like Langdedrosa's tent, the main tent near the mouth of the cave. All this stuff is gone, right? So they were starting to get the feel that, okay, this place is almost completely abandoned. But they knew that at least somebody was still in the caverns. They felt like maybe Frulam, maybe Langdedrosa, maybe the heavies were still there. So they skirted the plateau and they ended up dropping a rope down on the cliffside and kind of scaling the cliff down. The thief went down first, kind of putting those, I don't know what you call them. I'm not a mountain climber, so I wouldn't know. I want to say trawl up, but that probably means something completely bad. Safety pins of some kind. I don't know. You put in the stone. Oh, wow. When you move, you lose everything. Anyway, they did that to make sure everything was safe. And funny enough, I gave them a DC 5 athletics check. I thought, come on, guys, you'll be fine. And I gave them advantage, too, on the roll because he had put these safety pins, into the rocks. And, of course, Thembraeus, our thief, was the first one to go down, and it was his idea to put, these safety things. And, of course, he rolls like a DC, he rolls like a 6 or a 7. He almost completely screwed it up, being the first one to go down, too. It was almost a hilarious moment. But he goes down, everybody goes down just fine. They're rolling with advantage because of the safety. And they get down there, and as they're scoping the place out, they do spot at the mouth of the cave 2 lights, 2 torches. And this was the dragon claws that are 2 dragon claws that are at the front of the cave. And the book says, they're kind of wandering around the front of the cave and whatnot, but I had them have torches because it was nightfall and they were checking the mouth of the cave. They were bored. Let's face it, they were bored. They're going back and forth, just watching things. Well, I think it was Thembraeus again who spotted this. Could be wrong about this, but I think our thief spotted it, or perhaps Storm. And so I said, okay, you can tell it's torchlight. It looks like there's at least 2 of them. They've come to the mouth of the cave. Now they're going back. So they thought they were on patrol, right? And they were. They were definitely patrolling, just kind of this routine patrol. So they wanted to come up with a cool plan. They wanted to take both the guys out at the same time, kind of like, I don't know, a sniper elite moment or a Tom Clancy moment. Just want to snipe them both at the same time. So I had one of my players set a timer because there was a lot of talk back and forth, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Can you go with me? Can I go with you? Because they were going to break up in groups. Well, it's like, okay, you got 3 minutes to make a decision in real time. So we started the timer, and they decided to break off in 2 pairs of 2. And I think Althea, our druid, kind of hung back because she was not a ranged character. So our 4 ranged characters broke off into 2 groups, and they skirted the sides of the cave, so they kind of like a triangle, right? So they're here, and here is the mouth of the cave, and they each got their bows, longbows, crossbows, whatever the heck they were using, and lined them up, and they waited for them to come back. And here's how I did it. I just did it as a kind of just a natural, ranged attack. But I said, maybe this will give you some ideas. This may be wrong too. Who knows? But I said, look, if any of you roll a natural 20, insta kill. Anybody. If you both do it, that guy's totally gone. So 2 of them took one guy, 2 of them took another. And on the one guy, someone did roll a natural 20, insta kill. The second guy, both of them, I think one hit, the other missed. And then of course we're into initiative, right? Like now they're alert. The cultist knows what's happening. So they're all in initiative order. And basically what happened was the cultist ran down the cavern on his turn. Storm immediately chased after him and caught him just as he was coming around. Look at the map there. Just because he's making that right turn towards the pillars into the area 2 and 3 of the cave. And on his turn, kind of ran out there and managed to snipe him one last time and killed him right there. Right. So they got through that kind of first encounter. So they come into the cavern. And a lot of them do not have any kind of night vision. So our cleric did kind of a casting of light on our mace. They picked up the torches from the cultists. And I think our ranger at that time also picked up one of the masks, the dragon claw masks for one of the guys, and just kind of, put it on, or he stowed it at the time. And so they went creeping around, kind of looking to figure out which way to go. And there was a lot of talk back and forth about tracks and what things we should be searching for. And they eventually went the way where you have this back of the cavern. There's a 10-foot drop, and there's steps going down into the fungus garden. I think it's area 3. It's called the fungus garden. And in there, of course, are 4 violet fungi. And of course, they're lethal. And I actually rolled them wrong, and I'll get to that in a second. But they could see them out there finally when they came to the edge and were looking out. And of all things, my druid said suddenly, I'm out in the forest. I live in the forest, but I don't recognize anything here that's lethal and whatnot. So I was like, hey, great idea. Let's roll for it. And the book actually talks about that. So you have a DC 10, 12, or 15, something like that. And you can actually see these 4 lethal fungus out in the garden. And so she spotted them. She got like, an 18 or 19, I can't remember now. She totally spotted them and said, okay, right there are these violent fungi. So they're on the right side. Let's just kind of avoid them. And everybody was in unison. I mean, everybody was kind of, they were in agreement on this. All right, good. So they immediately went down the stairs. She went first. I rolled the dice, and she triggered the trap on the steps. So she spotted the fungi, ignited the trap, and then the ramp slid her directly into the fungi. Matter of fact, there was a cool moment there because she's a shapeshifter. She said, hey, can I turn into a rat real fast? And there was a few seconds there. I was like, you know what? Okay, it's going to be a very high DC number, but we can do it like a dex check. All right, just in case you have a druid there who might want to like shapeshift suddenly, like they could just kind of have a reaction to it. And I gave it to her. But, the DC was set, I think, at 20 or something like that. I can't remember now. And she didn't get close enough. She got like a 10 or 12. So she didn't shapeshift fast enough. So she rolled right into the fungi. And this is where I kind of messed up because I read the stats too quickly. I remember reading them having multiple attacks, but then I just suddenly went down to the attacks and just, hit her, just hit her with all the violent fungi. What I missed, and please don't miss this on your campaign, you're supposed to roll a 1d4, and that determines how many attacks each fungi gets. So I could have done far more damage. I think 2 out of 4 hit, maybe 3 out of 4, but I only attacked once. So I screwed that up. But she got zapped, though, each time. I think I hit her directly each time with those things. And, of course, the party comes down, starts to attack the fungi, and, one of them falls over on top of Althea, and one of them explodes because of a firebolt that hit it, and Althea is just covered in all the spores and the goop that's coming from them. It was pretty brutal, but they managed to get her out of there, and she didn't have any residual effects, no poisons or anything like that. So they got out of the garden. And then they decided to go a little bit further down in that direction. And of course, that's a big, large cavern. I think it's area 4. I could be wrong, but I think it's area 4. And there's a couple pillars there. And they started to look around. And of course, I think at this point, because Althea had been just drenched by the muck of the violent fungi, she decided to shapeshift into a wolf. And she pretty much stayed a wolf from then on to the end of the game. And she picked up on some scents and some smells. And also Thimbraeus, who had night vision, our thief, kind of saw ahead and could hear certain things. And when they looked up, they saw the huge carpet blanket of bats that were on top. And they actually kind of stepped on a couple carcasses at the bottom. And they didn't go very far into the cave. Now, this is a moment where I didn't know what was going to happen. Anything could go at this point. And they had a conversation. They were whispering back and forth what they wanted to do, and they decided, look, I don't think the caravan is going to be in this direction. This doesn't look like where they would stash everything and where maybe these dragon eggs would be. So let's turn around. So they stealthily, and we did a group stealth check, and they all passed with the DC number in the book. They backed up slowly and left, went back up I think they just climbed that 10-foot drop, and then they went down to where the guard barracks are. We had the guard barracks, a small little treasure room, and of course, this is where Frulam is. And this was fun. This was a fun encounter. I think it was like the last hour where this battle took place, last hour and a half. I have it on podcast. I wish I could get the podcast and video so you guys could see it both, what was happening. But this is where a lot of cool ideas and different things were happening. This is where a lot of the synergy was starting to take place. The wolf immediately picked up on the scent of another group. She could hear it actually first. She could hear a bunch of talking coming from the guard barracks. So she crept up and went down that little tiny tunnel and kind of just stopped. Didn't go around the corners or anything, but just stopped and listened. And we kind of rolled to see if she could guess like how many were there. She went back and scraped in the mud or on the rock how many people she thought were there. She estimated like 5 to 7. And I think really it was about 9, so she's pretty close. So they formulated a plan. And the plan was, let's ambush them. All right. And they used the ranger. The ranger had a great idea about, hey, I have this mask. Why don't I just put it on, go down there and say, hey, we got trouble. We got trouble at the front. I need just some help. Not all of you, just a few of you. I just want to take care of this problem. Right. So it was perfect. And it worked. It worked the first time. Let's put it that way. Our ranger went down there and he went down the tunnel. He kind of stayed silhouette. He didn't step out into the light or anything, and he could see everybody in there. Well, most people. He couldn't see around the corners there, but he could tell they were lax. They were being lackadaisical. They were putting weapons away, sharpening weapons, playing some music, different things like that. So he called three of them. Said, hey, come on, we need help. And they, of course, asked, like, what's going on? Well, we got trouble up front, right? So they're like, oh, okay. So three of them followed. And, of course, they're coming out of the cave. I can maybe show you a map. It's be easier. They're coming out of the cave. All three come out. And everybody before that positioned themselves, like, behind a pillar on the left and right side of the opening to ambush all of them. And that's exactly what happened. They all got a surprise round on all three of them. And, long story short, killed all three and dragged and hid their bodies. Matter of fact, they took the bodies back to area 3 and slid them down the ramp, and the bodies just kind of ended up in the fungi, right? And as a DM, there was a moment there. I was like, how much clatter and how much noise is there really in this situation? Because the other guards barely got an attack in, and of course the heroes are not yelling out as they're attacking. They're trying to be stealthy. So I ended up rolling for each character to see on the death blow, like, would they cry out suddenly? Would they scream after being killed? And each one failed. I was rolling ones and twos a lot last night, matter of fact. But yeah, they all failed those checks. So they were able to kind of kill all three without alerting the entire cavern. So what's the logical thing to do here? Let's do it again. I mean, that's exactly what they did. Let's just do it again. So they went right back into their same positions. Our ranger, I was going to say Althea, that's not him, Mortimer, goes back a little bit further now and says, hey, we got a wolf. There's a wolf coming into the front. I need help. I can't get it on my own. And of course, the cultists that were there, this time 4 came, I think 3 or 4, and one of them was a guard. And he said, hey, grab your spears. We got a wolf. And of course, Althea, our wolf, was out there howling and growling, right? And the cultists chopped it up to, okay, we've had this problem before because the damn dragon eggs and all the things and the food that's being brought in, it sometimes attracts wildlife. And now we don't have anybody out there in the camp to kind of keep an eye on that. The rangers are out hunting. So again, I felt like if you get into a situation, I felt like the ruse made sense. It just made sense. The opening of the cavern is not perfect, right? And as far as they knew, they thought Mortimer was the cultist, the fellow Dragonclaw that was at the opening of the cave. So he again brings 4 guys out, but the problem was this time, the guard spotted Storm, who was hiding on the left side. And that kind of triggered the combat immediately. They thought it was, just immediately suspicious. Suddenly he just saw someone hiding in the dark with a hammer. And so that kind of sparked the whole thing. And this is where, I think in the map, you look at it, there's all kinds of bottlenecks right there, from the left to the right, all the way down to the barracks, and then another little bottleneck into Frulam's lair. So there is, long story short, there was a long battle to try to get into that tunnel. And a lot of my guys, I had them retreat back into the barracks to try to protect that area. And so many people died, and there was so much, just outcry, that Frulam eventually had to take part in the battle, right? Because she's kind of hemmed in as well. She's trapped. So she thought her best option was to join the battle, command the troops, and hopefully fight off these defenders, these heroes, whoever has decided to attack the cavern. So it was rough. It was a lot of combat, but it was fun. It was entertaining combat. And funny enough, this is, I fail. I don't know what it is about spells as a DM. I don't use them often, but Frulam has quite a few, and every single one of them failed. Every single one. Storm, the tank, I'll put his picture up, he was making mincemeat of a lot of people. And of course, Frulam sees this, and she doesn't want her people killed. She does have, loyalty there. She's still a commander. And so I kept firing off hold person, trying to paralyze Storm so she could get the upper hand. Every single time it failed. Either I think both times I hit Storm, but Storm every single time passed the DC. So Frulam tried her best to get a handle on the situation. But by the time she did intervene, a lot of the guys were dead, including the guy in the treasure room who came down. Althea, who think was a wolf at the time, went and took care of him. That opened up a lot of the hallway there, and everybody kind of funneled back down and took care of the rest of the guards and the cultists. And it got down to the point where it was just Frulam and the heroes. And it was kind of a rough battle. I used a lot of her healing spells, and that kept her up. It kept her going. She would heal herself, attack. She would be attacked, stop, try to hold person on Storm again, could not do it. And on one of her turns, I remember her remarking, she's kind of wiping the blood off her chin. And she said, you will never take me alive. So she fully intended to die right there. And she used Healing Word on herself, one of her spells, and healed herself up about halfway of her hit points. And then as she brought her halberd up, she screamed at the top of her lungs. Because I didn't know what else to do at the moment with Frulam. She has no backup. She's at the end of the cavern. She's at a dead end, and she's surrounded by 5 people. So her hope was to hold out long enough to raise the alarm. So we haven't dealt with that yet. We're going to play this Friday. We're going to play the next Friday. But let's just say somebody's heard the scream, right? So they started doing non-lethal damage. And eventually, she actually got some pretty darn good strong hits off Storm. And it was like the last round, I think. She got 2 solid hits on Storm. He had some kind of ability, I don't know what it is. It kind of like, you could take 3 points off of the damage or half or something like that. I don't know a lot of character options. It was just a cool option. But eventually, he was, I think, the last one to strike her. Could be wrong about that, but I think he was. And brought her down. And it took a while to bring her down. And it was a fun session. That's it. That's where we ended. She dropped, and it got quiet, and we stopped. And I tell you, the players that night really brought the entertainment. They really did. Of course, as the DM, if you're going to do this, we have to bring the entertainment, right? It's kind of our responsibility. But I think it's only 50%. I think the other 50%, the fun at the table, comes from the players. I can only do so much. It's me versus 5. It's me entertaining 5 people or 6 people or whatever you're playing with, right? So to me, when the players are more interactive and they're just coming up with all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think what's also important is they're using their tools. I'm not talking about skills. I'm just talking about like thieves' tools and like a rope and different things. Like one guy, our thief, wanted to buy a battering ram, but I kind of felt like Erebor wouldn't have that. It was just too small of a city. But I was like, man, just before we started playing too, I remember thinking to myself about synergy. Like I'm wondering what was going to happen to my characters or players. And 2, I was thinking about, tools are fun. Your equipment that your characters have is fun. And I'd like to see more characters use that stuff. And at the very beginning of this session, a lot of people were buying a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. And they used a lot of it. And I think the banter, the communication they had back and forth, the plans, and the jovial behavior everybody had, I think really just made an entertaining session. It was a lot of fun. So I think, Chapter 3, we still got at least 2 more sessions. It seems for me, I don't know about you, but it's taken about 3 sessions of about 3 hours of play to get through a chapter. To get through a chapter. So it may fall about that for you. I don't know. Maybe. Depends on how many people you're playing with. But anyway, great session. Good session. Did not have a radio drama, just, because of moving. Had no time, really no quiet space to even record anything. I had 2 or 3 ideas, but just didn't have the time to do it. Matter of fact, as I'm done recording this, I got to go and, organize and stage my linen closet. Lots of fun. But anyway, so this is it. That's all that happened. I mean, a lot more happened. There was a lot of laughter and funniness. I got to go back and listen to the podcast. There's a couple things here's the thing that happened to me too, which hasn't happened ever. I was like neck deep in books. If you've watched my other campaign diaries, I don't play with books. I don't like having a lot of books around me. Oh my gosh, I had 4 books open, just trying to keep up with everything. And I have to say, I was kind of proud of myself, if I may. Not because of just how wonderful the session was. That was more than, right? To me, it was just that I was keeping up, which sounds funny, right? But that I was keeping up, that I was having to juggle all these books and then all these monsters and creatures, and at the same time, I think just trying to figure out what would Frulam do? What do we do in this situation? But anyway, so that's it, guys. That's my campaign diary. That's what happened in the lieu of short on time, no radio drama. The characters, man, just hit a home run, and we had that moment. We had the epiphany moment. We had the synergy, the moment of synergy in our game, and I can't wait to see now what happens as we go forward. What's the next session going to be like? In the next session, I mean, how they're learning to work with each other, and it's paying off in a big way. I do know one thing, and maybe I hope this is good information for you. They're at level 4, and they're still kicking a lot of ass. So I feel like I've got to, I'm trying to keep this channel clean, so maybe I'll beep that. But they are kicking a lot of butt, and I feel like even the cultists, like, stuff needs to go up, hit points and different things like that. But, you know, there's still a lot in that cavern. There's still a lot of things, good and bad, that can be found and done. So we'll see how this goes, right? Anyway, that's it, guys. Hopefully my next one will be, I don't know, because we're not playing this week. Probably, I don't know, maybe another radio drama construction, how to put those things together. Because I do have an idea for the next session. I just got to get there. Oh, and by the way, they're still looking for Cricket. Cricket is still lost. And, you know, of course, Althea had her necklace that's actually doesn't guide, but it kind of lights up and, you know, and kind of gives her some kind of direction, but it doesn't give you complete, you know, navigational course on how to get somewhere. It just kind of glows when she's close and that kind of thing. So she was using it that night in the cavern, trying to figure out where Cricket was. So they got Frulam, have not got Cricket yet, and there's still a lot to go on in that cave. All right, guys, that's it. I'll let you go. Hopefully, I don't know how short this was. 30 minutes. Oh, gosh, it's so hard, guys. I don't know how you do it. I'm trying to make it entertaining, but it's so hard to get these things down in 20 minutes. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.